guys, it's Andrea from the blog Pine and Prospect Home, and today I want to talk to you guys about shopping at antique stores versus shopping at thrift stores. So I've done a couple of videos about thrift stores, and I've also done some videos all about antique stores. In fact, I have one video called Antique Shopping for Beginners if you'd like to check that out. If you are unfamiliar with antique shopping or if you've never been before, I shared some tips over there. And of course, I have lots of videos all about thrifting. I love thrifting. I love a bargain. So much of my home has been thrifted. But this past weekend, actually yesterday, my husband had the day off of work and he took me on a date and we went antique shopping and out to dinner. And he asked me, would you rather go to a couple of thrift shops or do you want to go antique shopping? And I chose antique shopping. I was just in the mood to go, and I thought it might be fun to do a blog post on this topic because both antique stores and thrift shops are very different, similar in some ways, but different. And so I thought I would talk about the differences between those, why I prefer shopping at one versus the other. So I'm gonna get into that today, and I'm also gonna share some footage of my husband and I's adventure yesterday going antique shopping. I shared a little bit of it in stories over on Instagram if you follow me there, but I found some neat things that I can't wait to show you guys. So my first difference here that I have written down in my notes is that thrift stores or thrift shops tend to have a lot more junk that you have to sort through, whereas antique shops usually, in most cases, everything that you're going to find at an antique shop has some kind of value. This isn't always true. I've been in some pretty rough antique stores, some gross ones that it did look like a lot of junk, but for the most part, some of my favorite antique shops usually have items of value, whether they are vintage or antique. And I believe antique, the definition of antique is over 100 years old, I want to say. I should Google that really quick for you guys actually. So I have it for you here. I looked it up. An item should be at least 100 years old to be defined as an antique. And generally speaking, if the item is no older than antique but less than 20 years, it falls under the term vintage. I've also heard the term true vintage as being at least 50 years old. So there's a fun fact for you guys. My second difference between antique shops and thrift stores is that thrift shops you will generally pay less money. Antique stores you're probably going to pay a little bit more. I have scored some amazing things at thrift shops, and in most cases it's just because, you know, they don't realize what it is. They're just trying to, you know, get rid of things, and so they price items very low. At antique stores, you know, if you're going to have an antique booth, in most cases you're going to research what you have, you know, figure out what it's worth and price it accordingly. That's not to say that I haven't gotten some amazing deals at antique stores over the years. Beautiful items. In fact, two of the things that I purchased yesterday I think were great deals. Would they have been cheaper at a thrift store? Probably. But sometimes thrift stores overprice items. In my opinion, I've seen furniture that is so overpriced at thrift stores, and I'm thinking, what in the world? Why is this dresser $300? It's a thrift shop, you know? So I think the more you go thrifting and antique shopping, you're gonna find those stores that you're more drawn to, that you know are priced fairly. Okay, so my third tip for you guys, thrift shops are usually pretty firm on their prices in most cases. Antique stores usually have some wiggle room. They're willing to bargain with you. In most cases, I mean, probably like 95% of the time, I would say that antique stores are willing to take some type of percentage off for you if you ask. I will always ask in an antique store, can you do any better? Unless the item is already clearanced by the booth owner. Like sometimes you'll see a booth that has 20% off the entire booth. I won't ask in that case. But a lot of times I'll say, is this the best you can do? And for the most part, they say, sure, we can knock off another 10%. At thrift shops, I haven't had that kind of luck. But sometimes at smaller thrift shops, you know, you'll discover them. For example, when we go on vacation every year, we find all these neat little thrift shops, and the owners are usually more willing to work with you. I've offered less at those type of stores, but at the larger chain stores, I don't generally have a lot of luck. Okay, so my fourth difference between thrift stores and antique shops is that antique shops are generally divided up into booths that, in most cases, not always, but in most cases, these booths have themes to them and items are displayed more beautifully. Thrift shops, that's not always the case. Now, a lot of times, depending on the thrift store, they will try to organize it. You know, clothing will be in one section, glassware in another section. They'll try to shove anything, you know, wood, like shelves or cutting boards, or they're usually piled up. Baskets, for example, will be in another section. So they are somewhat organized, but you have to do a little bit more digging. Antique shops, in most cases, are displayed a little bit more nicely. Now, believe me, there are some booths that I don't know what the owner is thinking. It looks like a tornado hit and there's just stuff piled up everywhere, and I don't even want to go into that booth. I am drawn to antique booths that are displayed beautifully, that are clean, that, you know, have some sort of display happening, some sort of theme going on. So I like that about antique stores. Sometimes, like at this last antique shop that we visited, there would be like a 70s booth and it was all 1970s furniture and records, and I just went ahead and walked right by that one because I knew I wasn't interested in anything from the 70s. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess it's just more enjoyable maybe to shop at antique stores versus thrift shops. To each his own, everyone is different. This is just personal preference and something that I sort of enjoy about antique stores. Okay, so the final difference that I have for you between antique stores and thrift shops is that antique stores, the dealers often know a lot of information about their pieces, whereas thrift shops, you ask them about something and they don't have a clue. I mean, a lot of times they're like, sorry, I mean, people just dump their stuff here, we price it, we don't really know. So I think that's neat. Whenever I go into antique shops, I especially love it when I run into the booth owner. Sometimes you'll see the owner kind of cleaning their booth or putting out new things, and it's just fun to talk to them. Just yesterday, my husband and I found this really cool coffee table that was way too much money. But the booth owner actually walked up and told us a little bit about the table, where he got it and the history of it. And I just think that's really neat. With antique shops, you can ask about items and get a little bit more information about what you're buying. And thrift shops, it's just like, you've got to do your own research, which is fine. But that's just another perk of antique shopping. So I hope that helps you guys. If you're wondering, you know, if you love vintage pieces, you want to incorporate them into your home, but you don't know whether to shop at thrift shops or antique stores, I would say shop both. And sometimes I'm in the mood to go thrifting. Sometimes I am just in the mood to go antique shopping. I think they are similar, but also very different. And it just depends on what you're in the mood for. I will say that sometimes thrift shops have brand new pieces, and antique shops don't generally have anything new. And what I mean by that is sometimes you can find like brand new Target furniture, or I don't know what some of the other stores, I think Kohl's, maybe Walmart sometimes donate some of their new items to thrift shops. Sometimes you'll get lucky and find brand new curtains or brand new pillows or blankets at thrift stores, mainly like the Goodwills and the Salvation Armies, which that is kind of neat. So I personally enjoy incorporating both into my home. I have some vintage pieces, but I also like to incorporate newer items as well. So that's sort of an advantage of shopping thrift stores, is that you can find newer things. So yesterday I wanted to quickly share with you what I ended up finding. I grabbed 2 baskets. I paid $20 for each of these baskets. So the first one I thought was so cool. It has this metal strapping that wraps around the bottom, and it had these numbers on the side and this old paint that was sort of chipping off, and I just thought it was super neat. I love the patina. I love that it was very worn, but I really love that one. I can just picture it with flowers coming out of it in the spring. I thought it was really pretty. So that was the first one that I found. And then we went over to another antique store later in the day, and I found this big, huge basket trunk, which was marked at 20 bucks too. And I thought, oh my goodness, Mike, I can't leave this here for $20. I mean, it had a really pretty patina. It wasn't too orange, and it has these beautiful handles that aren't broken. The lid works perfectly. It was in great condition. And I don't know what I'm gonna use it for yet. It would be great storage for the boys' room for stuffed animals, or I might use it in my office for material, fabric. I really don't know. It would make an awesome coffee table, but I really like my coffee table, so I'm not sure what I'll do with it at the moment, but I just thought it was too cool to leave there. So I ended up grabbing it, but I'm excited to incorporate these pieces into my home, and that's all I found. And sometimes, you know, you find a lot, and sometimes you don't find anything at all, but I really loved those 2 pieces. So I hope this information helps you guys. I, again, love shopping at both places. I think that most of my home is made up of thrift store and antique finds. It's just fun looking for items in your home that are unique and that nobody else has, something that is just different from everyone else. And so if you are new to my channel, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye.